Welcome back to Just Vetting, where we go beyond the exam room to talk about leadership, ownership, and what really takes to build something meaningful in veterinary medicine. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Michele Drake, founder of the Drake Center for Veterinary Care in Southern California. Dr. Drake purchased her first veterinary hospital at just 27 years old, built it into one of the most respected practices in Southern California, and today also serves as founder and chief veterinary officer of Genius Vets. Welcome, Michele, to Just Vetting.
Oh, thanks for inviting me.
We got a lot to unpack here. I started looking back at your background. I was like, wow, you got a lot to do in a short period of time. Before we get into the Drake Center, Genius Vets, tell me this, becoming a veterinarian, veterinary medicine, what attracted you to the profession?
So I'm one of those people that when I was 3 years old, I knew what I wanted to do.
Right.
So my kids always tell me, most people are not like that, Mom. And I'm like, yeah, it is super easy when you go to undergraduate, you know exactly what you want to do. I still love animals, like crazy animal lover to this day. Spend all my free time doing animal things like out in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty good at science. And then I always say, and I like people too, which is helpful.
Right.
So, it was daunting because at least at the time was, post James Herriot stuff and the numbers were tough getting into veterinary school. But I always say it was almost harder to stay in than it was to get in because it was a pretty rigorous, academic endeavor, as you know, from going through law school as well. But anyway, I always knew what I wanted to do. And so it was pretty easy.
In talking to a lot of your colleagues over the years, I find it split almost because there's so many who were on your side who said, I knew from such a young age. And then there's others, surprisingly, who went through college, maybe a second career, it kind of figured it out later in life. I'd much rather be in your shoes, let me tell you that, as opposed to jumping around, Was there a time?
Yeah, I'd say that.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I feel like that passion helped me a lot. Like I was so like singular and focused always. And when I bought my first practice, I didn't know I was going to own a practice at age 27, but I feel like that passion was very helpful. And also doing it young was very helpful too, So, there's just that, eighth wonder of the world is, accumulated, small things a little bit at a time is what, achieves, so I feel like that was really helpful for my career to get started really young, knowing what I wanted to do.
Yeah, and you got started at such a young age and you went to school in the Midwest and then you moved to California. What gave you the confidence to buy a practice at 27?
I was like so motivated to like what I saw is how I wanted the care of my patients and the service for the clients and then also the team. And I didn't have any terrible bad experiences in undergrad. When I worked for veterinarians, I saw some kind of very dysfunctional situations, like many of them. And I thought, I'm never going to be part of something like that. So I was I really wanted to do it on my own. And I felt like, hey, if you are so motivated to do it your way, you can't be telling somebody else who owns a practice how to do things. And I didn't. I was just like observed and learned. And then I'm like, okay, no, I want to go do this myself because I am very passionate about what I want to do. So it was really all about that. And I would have not known that, even in school, that's what I'd be doing 3 years later.
Right. Well, you don't, from the student, I don't know if it was like this when you were there, and it sounds like it was. It's such a rigorous course load. It's hard to, I guess, talk about business, talk about life after school. You're just trying to get through school at the end of the day, and then you'll figure it out afterwards. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think we all have a vision in our head of what it's going to be like, and it's not always the same as what it really is like. Right. So,
when you bought your practice, what did it look like when you first stepped in the door there? It obviously different from what it looks like today.
Yeah, when I was actually practicing in LA. I moved to LA because I wanted to play beach volleyball. and I wanted to be somewhere else besides the Midwest,
Right.
right? So that's what motivated me to move out there. And then, like I said, 3 years into, I'm like, I'm ready. So 2.5 years, I started looking for a spot. And then a broker that I had met at Western Veterinary Conference said, I've got a little practice in San Diego. I think I'd never even been to San Diego. And I got this little practice, I think you could have probably afford it, right? It was $350,000.
Wow.
Like one doctor, 3.5 employees. And and it fit. Like, so I had to get the I forget what SB 108 or something. I forget what the loan was.
SBA, there's some
So
type of SBA loan that you got, or yeah, right,
yeah.
right.
Anyway, did the whole loan thing, and then moved down to this practice that had no visibility from the street,
Uh-huh.
none. And it was like literally had 2 exam rooms. It was like 1,200 square feet. So like tiny, tiny veterinary hospital.
Right.
And yeah, that's how I started out was, myself and those 3.5 employees. And, boom, hey, I'm your new boss.
What surprised you
And
most about it, becoming an owner as opposed to being an associate?
I don't know. I mean, I've been doing it 3 years, a big long
Yeah.
time, before I did this. So I kind of knew, like, I knew how I wanted to do
Right.
things. And I had had enough leadership experience, like as a young person, to know I needed this whole team to be with
Right.
me. And I'm a pretty good communicator. So starting to involve them in my vision of this practice and where we're going and who we are, like right off the bat. So I started meeting with them like once a month at my house because I live in my apartment. I didn't even have a house at my little apartment. And, of course, I pay them for their time, but I'm like, I need you all to be here. Like once a month, we're going to get together and I'm going to tell you what I'm thinking. I want you to give me your input and then I want to let you know where we're headed. So I started doing that like right off the bat because I feel like a veterinarian's one thing I think a lot of us fail at is not letting our team know what's in our
Hmm.
head and getting their input. And also you need their buy-in to have their help with moving forward with just about anything you want to do.
I've heard you speak on a number of occasions, and you talk about your growth and the Drake Center. The one thing that always stands out to me, among many things, when you're talking, is the communication, the culture, and in the meetings. Just like and you started that, it seems like you just said at a very early age. From the very moment you became an owner, you were already, adopting a culture and bringing your team together and communicating what type of practice you wanted to run.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how else you do
Yeah.
it. So, and getting everyone aligned on the same page constantly. And that's something you have to do like from the get-go and like constantly as you grow. So I grew from one doctor to 11 when, I had it acquired a couple years ago. And that growth was, that's a lot of growth. And you do have to change your systems and your management plan and who and what kind of meetings you're having. All those things should grow, and the communication that you have to who, because you don't want to over communicate either,
Right.
because that gets overwhelming. Like we all did in COVID originally. It was just like I was like, communicating too much, but people also needed to hear from us during that
Right.
time. Like, and stepping up and be like, I need to like settle everybody down and get us all like focused on our mission, and we did an amazing job through COVID. Like I think my hospital crushed it. And that's because we had all these systems
Right.
and the trust set up before COVID. So I feel like my employees just looked at this as like, I get to get away from. And that's what I said to them. I said, when you walk in these doors, let's just leave all that noise behind, wear whatever PPE we're supposed to be wearing right now, but let's just put our heads down and take care of pets. Like, let's just do
Right.
that. And we did that all through COVID. And I said, I did not have one doctor call out that couldn't come in once. We didn't have a doctor shift missing the entire
Wow.
time, or really, I can't think of even any staff time because our team knew that if somebody would step out, somebody steps in to fill their shift.
Right.
And so, like, and I hired 4 doctors and 20 employees during that time and built out another facility next door because we outgrew our space so quickly during that time. But
During
anyway,
COVID, you had you were still growing, even during that period of time.
yeah, I
Yeah.
was like at that place where like I was at the busting at the seams of my
Yeah.
hospital, and then COVID hit, and I was like, oh holy heck. So I was actually thinking about winding down my own career before COVID, and then it hit. And I was like, I cannot leave my team. I cannot leave my team with this facility. So I just like it. There was a commercial building right next door,
Hmm.
a little strip mall. And I just built out 6 more exam rooms. And we call it the annex. It's a really beautiful little
Yeah.
space that we like. really tricked it up. And that was like my parting gift. I mean, I paid for that with my own cash that I made from COVID, just to be like, you guys can't stay in this small building. So it was like, it was one of my swan songs. So like, here, you get this, and I'm gonna go now.
Yeah, right. Well,
But, yeah.
going back to the beginning. So it's a one doctor practice. You go in there
Yeah.
and you grow it from one doctor to 11. I mean, that's a tremendous amount of growth.
Yeah.
What drove that? Was the demand always there? It just, or the vision. I mean, how did it? Because it does. We have clients. I have clients 20 years, and maybe a 3 doctor practice. That's what they are. I mean, just how did that happen?
Well, I think it's like every single opportunity you have to meet with someone, like a client or whatever, I would treat it like this was like really important to me. And, people like can feel that and they can sense that, like their pet's really important to me. They're really important to me. And I meant it too. Like my first associate, who was my only partner,
Right. Okay.
Kathy Bone.
Yeah.
Like we built our whole hospital on relationship with our staff, relationship with our clients, and our passion to really do a really good job for everybody that walked through the door. Right. So it turns out that leaning on a mission really strongly, building a strong culture, those are also amazing business techniques too.
Right.
And that was like the building block of our whole practice was that.
Mm-hmm.
And other thing that I did, which was super smart at age 27, is I actually come from an entrepreneurial family, and I read the Wall Street Journal every day, and I've been reading it since I was a little
Mm-hmm.
girl. But I hired a veterinary accounting firm and a veterinary attorney, hence Peter here. I mean, whoever it is, like I hired veterinary specific help because I knew what I knew, but I also knew what I didn't know. And having those people help me, like, and trusting them completely was so helpful, because then I could just focus on, hey, Michelle, here's your P&L every month. Like, here's where you are. Here's the benchmarks. Here's where we think your homework should be. And then I would pick and choose from those things what I wanted to focus on next. But I would say the combination of my, really passionate service plus, paying attention to business, the numbers, like basic numbers. I mean, I really always say if you really pay attention to 2 numbers, your payroll and your COGS, like that's really all you can control. And if you pay attention to those numbers and you put them where they're supposed to be, you're also going to, you're also going to have a high EBITDA too. It just is, like assuming you have the practice lined up and take good care of your staff and are well aligned and,
Right.
use a system, all those things too. But those are the things that so what it felt like for me is like, I thought what we did was really good. And I want to offer it to as many people that want to have this. So it'd be like, okay, now I have 2 doctors. And then I bought a freestanding veterinary hospital down the street. And now I have, it felt like a massive facility. It was 2,800 square feet.
Right.
I mean, that's not massive,
No,
but
right.
me from 1,200 square feet to that. So when I have 3 exam rooms, like, wow, this hospital seems so big. I need like jogged in the back. But so then pretty quickly I had 5 doctors, like right after that. And then, slowly grew from there. But it was just like more like the people wanted to be seen, and we kept opening up our hours a little bit more, a little bit more. Wound up being 7 to 7 Monday through Friday, and Saturday, Sunday 8 to 5. And the Sunday hours are important. I know a lot of people are like, oh, don't do Saturday anymore, don't do Sunday anymore. We're so cool. Look at us. And I'm like, well, that just doesn't support our mission, which is taking care of pets and people. Right. So it's like I wouldn't make only a 2-doctor practice work 7 days a week. But as you hire more doctors, like when I hired 4th and 5th, I was like, oh, by the way, as I hire you, we are going to be opening up on Sundays, and I will expect you guys to do like every 3rd Sunday. And then the other 3 of us will fill in the other one. So, you hire with the expectation of we're here to support a mission, and that's how we grew.
Yeah. And that's a great message on several layers. You talk about your team. And as you know, when we get together, we're always talking putting your team together. I think whatever profession you're in, putting the best people around you to help you be better is a great message. And you obviously adapted that at a very, very early age, which obviously helped your success. And then I hear you again when you speak, and even now, you're such a great communicator. And the level of expectation is there from the outset. So you hire somebody, and then 2 months into it, you tell them, well, you got to come in on Sunday. They're going to be like, what are you talking about? But from the very beginning, from the initial interview, you're telling them, listen, this is the plan. This is what I want. I want you to come work here. but we're going to be open on Saturdays and Sundays, and I want you to participate in that. So the expectations are clear. So that's, that's how you're going to build a better culture.
And I feel like that with so much of what's going on with like, the different generations, and people are like, oh my God, this generation. And I said, if you make it really clear who you are and what you're about, like I've heard a lot of young people who are amazing and awesome, but they step into us. We don't accommodate what they feel like is the best thing. And so like, and I have all like women except for one man. So many people have had their children while working for me. So this is what I say. I'm like, we have 9 months to plan for this. 9 months. That's a long time. We can figure this out. Do you want to work 2, 3, or 4 days when you come back? Like I do need to have some planning going on so I can decide if I have to hire a doctor. But I will work with you in any way you need to for your family. But the days are long days. But when you're at work, you stay at work. You don't get to go home and pick up your kid. Of course, we're accommodating when things come up. But for the most part, we need to be here to span the whole day because we can't have somebody leaving at 5 o'clock when we are still seeing patients till 7. So, but how we do accommodate them was like 2, 3, or 4 days. What do you want to do? And if you have to be off every Wednesday or every whatever, like we figure that out, and you got time and you plan for it, and it all works out. But my point is like, we have this super strong culture. We have a mission. And when we hire young people, I think so many of them appreciate that. And we don't have any problem hiring young doctors. I have had a few that are like, I only want to work Monday through Thursday, 8 to 4. I'm like, well, this will not work.
It's not the place for you. Right.
Good luck with that. Yeah. But, if you have a hospital that is going to really be here for people and take care of them, then we have to do more than that. So, yeah.
While you were growing in other practice, was there a time you could think about that it wasn't gonna be what you want to be? I mean, it doesn't sound like it because you were focused and it grew, but you ever question the growth or the success of the hospital at any given time?
I mean, I think for sure that as you get larger, it is hard to keep everyone happy all the time. And so you can't, but once you decide who you are and you really stick with that, and you can moderate it a little bit as you go along, but like be who you are and stick with that. And, once you have your mission, your culture, those things, and you align with those things, then, I think, and you're thoughtful about it and you look at it again and again, then, you can just keep making sure what you're sticking to feels good for everyone. I will say that like there were times, there was 2008. There was, that was like, holy cow, like, all of a sudden everybody lost 40% of their, their 401ks or whatever, their investment. And everything got a little scary. And whenever we'd have anything scary like that, I would just like, let's focus on our clients. Let's focus on how they're thinking, what they're doing. And that was the beginning of the iPhone, digital marketing, all those things, and how does our clients get information. So just paying attention to those things and not sticking your head in the sand, and then thinking about how do we need to, change what we're doing in order to accommodate, things. But as long as it's always true to our mission, we never would step out of that. But because I feel like there's so many gimmicky things that are going on right now. Sometimes I'm just like, like, hey, people, like, what are you doing? Like, you're just like servicing this like weird stuff that is not really the right thing to do. But that being said, I think everybody's got their own way.
Weird stuff. I like that. I'm going to leave it at that. Right. My wife says, "You got to be tactful sometimes." That was very tactful. I love what you said. I get it. It's good. Yeah. You speak with a lot of younger veterinarians throughout the country when you travel. What mistakes do you hear that they're making when they first become owners that you'd say, hey, why don't you, I hear what you're saying, why don't you try this, or this may work for you? Is there anything that stands out?
Well, I would just say, gosh, people like old people like myself, like we do really have some wisdom. So just pause for a second and actually listen to what we have to say. So like not that long ago, I was talking to somebody who just bought a practice, and it was a husband and wife, and they'd been like out of school, like, I don't know, 5 or 7 years. I forget what it was. But I said, do you guys have a veterinary bookkeeper? And they're like, no, we just have this guy, blah, blah. And I said, if I can give you one recommendation, like use veterinary specific people, like it will matter to you. It will matter. And they're like, yeah, okay. And I could tell they were not going to do it. And I just thought, if somebody like looks you in the eye and is taking the time, I don't even know you guys from a can of paint. And I'm like, listen, like this is something you should be doing. Like I'm not saying you have to do anything I say, but I was like, this was such an important thing because you're often an island when you're running your own practice. You're often a little island. And if you don't have some eyes on that are like outside, perspective, benchmarking type eyes, then I don't know. I think not a good idea.
Mhm.
So I really think veterinary CPA, veterinary attorney, like somebody that knows this
Mhm.
business when you're signing documents, when you're, buying real estate, whatever, like utilize these people that know our profession and the intricacies of it. It will help
How about a
tremendously.
management group? You're a longtime member of
Oh
VMG,
yeah.
right?
Yes. Yes. 17-year member of VMG. And yeah, it was a great organization. It is a great organization. I was just there at Congress. Actually, I was on a little
Right.
panel this weekend with them. And yeah, it's a great organization. It really helps keep you accountable, twice a year meetings, but just the benchmarks and the data link that they have to offer, plus all of the buying power is also
Right.
very strategic and, will help drop a couple points to your EBITDA if you really utilize the system well. But just the friendships that I've developed there over the years have been, really important in my life
It's
as
almost
well.
like your own personal board of directors that you're able to get
Yeah.
together with twice a year. You talk about being on an island as a practice owner, but you go there
Yes.
and you're talking with other owners. Well, this happened in my practice. Well, it
Mhm.
happened in mine too. And this is how I
Yeah.
solve for that. Um, a lot of our clients who are in management groups like that, there's a difference because you
Yeah.
can take different nuggets from those meetings, bring it back, and implement them to improve your practice.
I think you're just allowing yourself to be open to other ideas
Yeah,
and thoughts. And sometimes I'll think like, that's
right,
stupid. And then I'll like think about it some more. I'm like, oh, actually, that sounds like a pretty
right.
good idea. I think I'm going to try to do my own version of that or whatever. And also just, we'll push each other too. So
Just tell me
maybe
a
we,
little bit about Genius Vets. What were you
yeah.
trying to solve with Genius Vets? How did that come about?
Yeah, so 2008 and the whole world changed. The iPhone came out, digital marketing, and one of my clients was Harley O'Ryan, who is the CEO of Genius Vets. And I said, Harley, like he's just the most generous, nice guy. I said, Harley, will you come into my practice for an hour, like 7 to 8, like every other week for like 2 months, and just explain to me what the heck this stuff is? And he's like, totally, sure, Michelle, come in. I think I gave him like
Hmm.
$500. Like it was like nothing. And he was so generous with his time and explained just like this whole new world that like made your head
Right.
explode in 2008, honestly. And so then he owned a marketing agency, and then he was getting ready to sell this agency, and he wanted to do some different things. He started doing websites for me, and then some of my buddies were like, hey, that was a cool website, let me, who did this? And so then Harley thought about, veterinary stuff, like what was offered to veterinarians and what still is offered to veterinarian by marketing companies is terrible. Like it's awful. And veterinarians don't have the ability to assess really what their performance is, what they think is good. So anyway, so he said, we're thinking about doing this, and a guy I went to school with. So what do you think? You want to be on our board, or do you want to be the face of the company? And I said, oh heck no. I said, I want to be a founder. And the reason I want to be a founder is because I feel like I can truly help a lot of my colleagues with the business aspect of things. The biggest thing about marketing is all marketing is knowing who you are, having your staff know who you are, and then putting that out there in the world. That's all marketing is. And I think marketing use has had a very bad, like reference for veterinarians for many years, but really all it is just letting people know who you are, and how you do that as of 2008 changed tremendously. I mean, I used to use the yellow pages.
Right.
That's how old
Right.
I am,
Right.
right? And so it all changed. And so then we went and spoke to my VMG first and started building this platform and kind of built it, with the first 10 clients. And then Merck invited us to work with them. But the whole idea behind it was to provide a really amazing platform that's digital marketing that's very high performing, that would normally cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, and then making it into a system that is repeatable for veterinary hospitals, so that it is affordable, but also truly does perform to communicate with clients and draw clients in. So
It seems like a very similar system that you built at the Drake Center just worked. You had a system in place, right? I
yeah,
mean, systems,
yeah,
right?
right.
Right.
Yeah, systems, exactly. And then so I mostly speak for Genius Vets on the things that I wrote my book
Hmm.
on, leadership and actually veterinary practice operating system. But I really do understand marketing. Harley said to me when we met way back when, he's like, "You're just a natural marketer. which is just not that I know all the,
Right.
funny things about it. It's like how to have your whole team know what you're doing and then put that out into the public, into your local community so people know where to go if they're looking for
Right.
that.
Well, I love what you said earlier. The culture and the relationships, are very important as a team, but also outward facing. You can utilize that not in actually in a good way to draw clients in because they see that you're genuine about it. I want to go there. I want you to be, treating my pet. And every introduction you said you used as an opportunity. That's not something you typically teach. It just, it's innate in someone. So, yeah.
Yeah, we had like all the drug reps that would go into, 50 hospitals in a month, and they would all say coming to the Drake Center was a very different experience. That you could actually feel like the
Right.
difference coming in, that we actually all worked as a team, that we actually all really liked each other. And those things don't happen accidentally. They're truly intentional of how you make sure that that happens. And no matter how good your culture is, you're always working on it because something will come in, a person will come in that tries to like kind of get, whatever, a little bit going. It's like, oh, heck no,
Mm-hmm.
that is not going to happen here. Just confronting issues right when they happen. And that's really important to do if you want to maintain a strong, healthy culture.
Where do you see veterinary medicine over the next 5-7 years? If you had a crystal ball, where do you see it going?
Well, I mean, I was just listening to the economist at the VMG meeting. It's kind of scary him talking about the 2030s, right?
Right.
But, I think independent veterinary practices are by far the strongest thing that we have out there. But then them working in groups like in VMG to collaborate and stay on top of their game and make sure, but they are the strongest as far as, competing with corporate. Corporate will never compete well with independent practices ever. Independent practices will always have it, the best. And that's because they're so nimble and they can truly be true to themselves and put the right thing out there. So there will always be a need for
Mm-hmm.
that. I mean, that's not going to go away. I do think like there's so many toys out there right now. So I think pay attention to those toys and use those toys, but don't grab all of them and use all of them. And to be thoughtful about how you're using them, like AI and
Yeah.
scribing, all those things would be amazing. I think they're going to be great tools for us. But the basis of the relationship between humans and the pet, like that should never go away. I saw one group, it was a corporate group talking about how they were so proud of the fact that you came into their hospital and left their hospital without seeing a human at the front desk. So you came in and you like just typed in your
Right.
stuff, nobody's there, and you left doing the same thing. And they were so
Like the
proud of that,
Jetsons, it sounds like, right?
like the Jetsons. And I was like, okay, so to walk in and not be greeted by a
Right.
human that cares that you're there, and then ask you at the end, do you have any other questions or do we miss anything or is there anything else we can take care of? And so thank you so much for coming in. I'm sorry, but that's should never go away. And the other thing I was always like is the day that I have a phone tree answer my phone call at my office is the day you go ahead and bury
Right.
me because I was like a human needs to answer that phone. So those are funny little things, and maybe it's being
Yeah,
old
so I was going to say
fashioned,
that, right? I know.
but
Listen, we're very similar
I
age,
know.
so I get it.
Yeah, I know. So that's something I think the young people really should learn from us.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's scary. You have kids, I have
Yeah.
kids, and it's like, it's like me, me, me,
I
me, me,
know.
me.
It's like get out of your phone and communicate.
Get
I
out of
tried to
your
make an
phone.
appointment yesterday to get my car serviced, and I could tell it was AI on the other
Oh
end.
no.
And I'm listening, and I hung up, and I
Oh,
did it again. I'm like, all right, I went through it, and then if you want to talk to somebody, press this. So then I did it, scheduled my appointment. Then they transferred me right into voicemail, and nobody called me back. So it just you know
oh
what I mean.
yeah.
So it is what it is.
Yeah, whenever you do those voicemail things, no one ever calls you
Now
back. Like
I'm kind of stuck. There's
ever.
nowhere
Like
else I go get a service for my car. So it's, I
what are you
guess
gonna
if there's no
do?
competition, they're like, hey, you can do it. I don't care.
Yeah.
Ah.
Yeah.
That's the Italian, Michelle. So I can do that when you come over to the East Coast.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this before we
Yeah.
drop off. Where, no, with everything
Yeah.
going on, no, where do you know?
Yeah.
What do you do to recharge outside of vet med? What's fun for you? What do you do?
Well, I have the cutest dog in the world, and I walk him about 4 miles every day, and then I mountain bike. I love to mountain bike. So being in San Diego, I can get on my bike any day, and then I'm in the trails up in Bend, Oregon, like for hours.
Yeah,
Well, I was just up there last week, and I just ride my bike.
clear your
I
head.
love traveling.
Yeah,
clear my I just like I
Love
love
the
it. I just love
outdoors.
how hard it is. And just being in nature. Like I think I someone said one time like your true self is who you were when you were 8 years
Right.
old. I was like living in a tree or hanging with my dog. So I think that's how I'm gonna go out of this world
That's
too.
cool.
Maybe not in the
Right.
tree, but maybe riding my bike through trees and hanging out with dogs.
You know, you live in a,
And my
and you what? Oh, and your
husband.
husband too.
And my
Right, right,
husband
right.
too on
You're
my
supposed to
dog.
lead with that, and then you back into all that stuff.
Okay,
I know
yeah.
that as a
Well, he
husband.
won't see
Yes,
this.
I know. Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
okay.
Well,
Yeah.
listen, I appreciate you joining us today. I mean, you shared a wealth of knowledge. I always enjoy, talking with you, and I'm so glad our listeners get to know a little bit more about you and your journey. Where could they go to learn more about, you, the Drake Center, your book, Genius Bets? I mean,
Yeah.
where's the best place for them to go?
The book is on Amazon and I don't make a penny off
Hmm.
it. So like I'm not promoting it for that, but it does have a good sense of how to run a veterinary hospital that I'm sure you could pick some pearls from. I'll be speaking at New York Vet, Wild West, and WVC Nashville next, and then I speak with VMG groups when I'm invited. And that's enough speaking for me for the year, but that's where I'll be
Cool.
next.
Well, listen, I appreciate your time. It's always good to see you, and I look forward to seeing you in
Yeah.
person soon.
Yeah, sounds good.
Thanks
Thanks,
for joining
Peter.
me. Bye bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.